And this time, guys, we're going to talk about HCG. So we're going to tell you all about HCG. It gets talked about a lot on the forums. The name of HCG, it stands for human chorionic gonadotropin. And what it is, it's a polypeptide hormone. And it was originally derived from the urine of pregnant females, extracted out of there. And now, obviously, they make it in a lab, and it's basically the carbon copy of that. It was discovered before World War II by a company called Organon, which was very, very popular, made a lot of steroids throughout the 90s. And they named it Pregnal. So originally, they sold it to treat female infertility, depression, obesity, and bleeding of the uterus. So as time went on, much like insulin, drug companies found out a way to produce it synthetically. So the HCG you buy today isn't actually that female pregnant urine. It's actually a synthetic powder, which is, you know, what these guys do. So back in those days, they used to play a lot with hormones. That was their little thing. I'm not really sure what happened, why they don't play with hormones anymore. I think just they kind of ran out of ideas and it's not maybe profitable for them to do that anymore. But back in those days, they did. So I'm going to bring in Rick. Rick's going to tell us a little bit more about the history behind HCG.
All right, guys, so the history of HCG, really short history here. As far back as 1928, scientists were looking for this hormone. They were trying to find a good test to figure out when women were pregnant or not. And one of the first things developed was actually injecting the urine of pregnant women, or women that were believed to maybe be pregnant, into a toad. And the toad would actually ovulate just not long after having been injected, if the woman was pregnant and there were high levels of HCG in her urine. Obviously, the toad would ovulate. And this was like the first time that something like this was developed. Obviously, today we have a strip that women urinate into, and the strip will give you 1 line or 2 lines, right, depending on whether she's pregnant or not. Now, I don't have the info on when HCG was available commercially for prescription and such, but there is a reference here to a doctor in 1954 who's the first guy to develop the HCG diet. And as far back as 1954, the idea of injecting HCG into your fatty tissue to help lose weight during a caloric deficit diet for women was started to be a thing. That's how far back it's gone. Eventually, the FDA forced the doctor to stop making claims on the HCG diet because other doctors tried to replicate the results, and they weren't able to. So he came under a lot of pressure, and the FDA made him take back some of his claims. Now, HCG has been used by bodybuilders now, mainly to grow their testicles back. 1970s, 80s, not a full lot was really understood about suppression and post-cycle therapy, but guys knew that HCG would make your testicles plump right back up if they got small, if you had some testicular shrinkage from taking steroids. HCG is still used and available today. It's funny because sometimes HCG will become real scarce in the market for a period of a year or two. Then it'll be real abundant. Then it'll be scarce again. So there's definitely, I've seen it both ways, where sometimes it's really easy to get and sometimes it becomes really hard to find. Although there are probably better options on the market today for post-cycle therapy than HCG. I personally like HC Generate, or N2 Generate, right, which are my herbal products. I think they do a much better job at everything HCG used to do for me. Even when you took HCG, you still want to back it up with some Clomid. So the fact that you get a bit of an estrogen spike with HCG, and that you still got to take the Clomid, I eventually over time just swapped it out for the herbal, the N2 Generate, and I feel like the herbal products really fill in that gap. So it's pretty much just the history on HCG, guys. It's been Scientists have known about it since 1928. It's the oldest reference I found. And bodybuilders are still using it today. It's being used worldwide, and stuff's still around. It's not criminalized, but it is prescription only. And some people still use it for dieting. They still believe it can burn fat.
All right, yeah, we're gonna get into using it for PCT in a little bit, but first I wanted to get in and add something to what Rick was saying. So if you've ever heard about this, basically where HCG comes from, in the early stages of pregnancy, it's going to be created in the placenta. It plays a role in progesterone production. That's a very important female hormone. So if you've ever been in a situation where your girlfriend had a pregnancy scare, which, all of us used to when we were younger, you may have purchased your girlfriend, went to the store and bought like 5 different pregnancy tests. So after conception, levels of HCG are going to rise. And that's why when they pee on a stick, it's going to be detected. So that's why HCG is extracted from female pregnant urine. So that's where it's coming from. That's the hormone that's being created in there. So that would be an indicator of pregnancy if they peed on the stick and it came out positive. So for some of you, it's going to be very, very bad news. For others, it may be good news. I don't know. And what happens after about a few months, your levels start to drop until the female gives birth. So that's where HCG is actually derived from. Now, why are we talking about HCG on this podcast? It's because over the years, just like all these other hormones and these other drugs that have been produced, bodybuilders have found ways to use HCG in bodybuilding. So those that use anabolic steroids will use HCG to on cycle basically mimic LH, which is luteinizing hormone. So when you mimic LH in your body, your pituitary glands still get signaled to be suppressed, still get signaled to be shut down, but your Leydig cells, which are your testes, get signaled to function. So when you're on cycle and you take HCG, your balls will plump. That's why they plump. But it's not preventing you from being shut down. It's not preventing you from being suppressed. All it's doing is it's jumping over the pituitary glands and stimulating your Leydig cells. So it's fool's gold if you use HCG during cycle or during PCT and you say, wow, my balls are being plumped. That means that I'm not getting shut down. No, you're still getting shut down. It's just jumping over the pituitary glands when it comes to your HPT as a whole. So what Rick was saying is absolutely right. To use AC Generate, the modern supplement called N2 Generate, it's got natural herbs in it, and those natural herbs are going to plump your testicles just the same way as ACG would, but at the same time, the N2 Generate will not shut down your pituitary glands further delaying recovery. So really, in my opinion, guys, and this is based on what I'm explaining to you, really the only time you should be using ACG would be maybe toward the end of a cycle or in a situation where you're going to come off. You should never use ACG, though, during post-cycle therapy because it's just going to delay recovery. Remember, you cannot be recovered without your pituitary glands functioning and spitting out that LH and that FSH, follicle-stimulating hormone. You cannot be recovered just because your balls plump up. That's not recovery. You cannot be recovered just to signal your Leydig cells to function. That's not recovery. Because what happens is guys run HCG and PCT, their balls plump, and they're like, oh my God, I'm recovered, so let me hop on another cycle. And they keep repeating that mistake over and over. And over time, they're basically frying their HPTA. And guys over the years on forums have said, you know what, I use HCG for years. I fried my HPTA. Now I have to go on TRT the rest of my life. and they'll use some vague reason for that happening. They'll just come up with something like that to say that, but that's not the truth. The truth is you're using HCG and PCT, and you are keeping yourself shut down throughout PCT, and then you were never giving your HPTA, your pituitary glands, a chance to ever recover properly. That's why you fried your HPTA. It's not for no other reason than that. So it's fool's gold. And we see a video of Rich Piana. It's still up there. It's got millions of views. And Rick, I'm sure you've seen this video where he talks about HCG, and he says, oh, you should always run HCG and PCT. That's all you need for PCT, blah, blah, blah. Guys, Rich Piana never came off hormones. If you run HCG and PCT, that's a hormone. You're just staying on a hormone. You might as well just run testosterone during PCT if that's going to be your attitude toward PCT. So absolutely, it should not be ran in PCT. The purpose of PCT is to give yourself a soft landing. Does HCG give you a soft landing? Yes, it does. But it also does not allow you to recover. It delays recovery because it is a hormone and it's continuously suppressing you. So the only time you should use HCG if you want a soft landing is during when you're on cycle and you come off and the esters are trickling out of your body. You can use some HCG then. Is it necessary? No, it is not. It is not necessary. But we're seeing HCG pushed, and for two reasons. And Rick, I'm going to bring you in on this because you know much more about international stuff than I do. But I'm strongly a believer that it gets pushed for two reasons. Number one, it's extremely cheap to produce. Extremely cheap. So the profit margins on HCG are sky high. I mean, they make 10 times. It probably costs $5 to make HCG, and they sell it for $50. The second reason is the HCG diet. The HCG diet is pushed so much, and that people in India, they are selling HCG to Americans, and they try to push the HCG diet to help Americans lose weight. And HCG doesn't cause weight loss. We know that. So we've had some anti-aging clinics over the years selling HCG as a weight loss remedy, and the FDA came in and finally shut them down. They were late to the party shutting them down, but they did shut them down. They said, no, you cannot keep selling HCG for diet loss because that's not what it is. It's extracted female urine. How the hell does extracted female urine help you lose weight? Makes absolutely no sense. So Rick, I'm going to bring you in on this. Tell us your thoughts on the stuff I've been saying.
You know, the way I regard HCG, it has a pretty immediate cosmetic effect as far as making your balls get plumped pretty quickly. So if your balls got a bit small from being on cycle too long, or you're just sensitive, and it does happen to people, the HCG, a shot will bring them back fairly quickly. However, I feel like, and I've also discussed this with other bros, I feel like it gives you a bit of an estrogen spike. You can feel it in your mood a little bit. You can feel it in and see it in the way you retain water for a couple of days after the shot. And HCG doesn't have some long ester where it's in your system for days. It's in and out same day. So really, you only get the benefits or the effects of it for about a day. Then it's gone. It's good. It helps to kickstart and to kind of wake your Leydig cells up, cells in your testicles, obviously, right? Wake them back up, get them going again after they've been suppressed from cycle. So when you're on cycle, your pituitary is not producing as much LH and FSH as it normally would, shuts down. So the Leydig cells are not being stimulated, and so they shrink. Your testicles, they just get smaller. HCG stimulates these Leydig cells again. They plump up. They get ready to produce testosterone. And this is where the size change comes in. Now, it's okay, but it's gone after first day, and you know, you need more than 1 day to recover. Some guys used to take their HCG kit and spread it out over a week or two, taking a shot every other day or every third day. in order to spread out the effect, because one day, one shot just isn't enough. Again, this thing doesn't have some ester chain where it stays active for days. So I mean, it does help, and I feel like if your Leydig cells were atrophied from really low LH and FSH levels, I feel like when you take the HCG shot, maybe makes them just a little bit more sensitive to LH and FSH. So even if your pituitary is just recovering, you're still getting some benefit even from the lower levels. Something that maybe your Leydig cells wouldn't be as responsive if they were atrophied. What your pituitary gland is making at the time is maybe not enough to wake them up, I guess you could say, and the HCG shot gets them plumped up. Now, the reason why I've really have preferred and switched over to the herbals ingredients over time as opposed to HCG is because I can take the herbs day after day after day for months on end, and they're always working, when the HCG shot is really in and out of your system. One of the lab tests done on animals on the Fedoja agrestis in HC Generate, now called Into Generate, it showed that basically the animals' testicles grew. The rats' testicles grew during this study. They took in more cholesterol. And the reason they took in more cholesterol, obviously, is because your Leydig cells make testosterone out of the cholesterol. So the cholesterol is a big complex structure, right? Relatively speaking, it's like a big chunk of granite. And then different enzyme reactions in your testicles, cleave away parts of that big chunky cholesterol molecule. And what's left over is the three-ring structure we all know as testosterone. This is all done by your Leydig cells and enzymes. Part of what makes your testicles plump, that additional cholesterol in there. And Fedoja agrestis does just that. As well as increase testosterone on blood test, it actually plumps your testicles right up. And it doesn't take a long time. If your testicles are small from taking steroids, once you get on the N2 Generate for about 3 to 5 days, I mean, they'll plump right back up within the first week. You might get some pain in your nuts during this time. Some guys have reported a little bit of pain, but they're growing pains. Your testicles get nice and plump again after only about 5 days on it. So HCG, again, it's not a bad product. A lot of guys see benefits and they feel like it really helps their cycle. But it was a good product for like the 70s and the 80s, 90s, when we just didn't have a lot of other options. Nowadays, when you have something like N2 Generate that you can buy over the counter, and it's always legit and money back guarantee that we offer, and you're getting all those benefits and feeling even better on it, it just kind of makes taking a shot of HCG obsolete at this point. I mean, you do get that cosmetic benefit, but you're not recovering a lot just on a one-day shot.